Welcome back to another episode of Let's Have a Sip. I'm your host, Sean Drinks. Do you smell that?
What are we smelling?
It's Westward Whiskey. Boom. Thank you for this. It was a nice little surprise. Westward Whiskey. This is, it's funny. This is, so on the bottle on the bottom it says a tribute to Oregon's legendary Willamette Valley wine country. So my fiance is she loves wine, and she loves specifically Left Coast, which is from what the Willamette, what is that? Willamette Valley wine country. So that's Oregon.
Mhm.
And then I don't know if it's any other place besides just that area, but I would always call it like Willamette, and she's like, "No, it's like damn it, but
Yeah,
you gotta pronounce it Willamette." I'm like, "Okay, makes sense." So
I was actually about to ask you how you learned to pronounce it because I could never recall until somebody told me, "Willamette, damn it," and now I've never forgotten.
exactly. So all right, so Jillian Whitlow, you are a rep for Westward Whiskey. How did you get into that?
Well, so I've been in the food and beverage and spirits world pretty much my entire working career, about 16 years at this point, and I've worked every position there is to work pretty much in a restaurant or a bar from the front of the house to the back, dishwashing, all the way up to director of operations. So I've always loved the industry, the community, the people. And until very recently, until I took this job, I was always kind of working in a single establishment on premise in one of those roles or filling many of those roles sometimes, I guess. But I was kind of looking to get out of the day-to-day grind of a restaurant or a bar, and, I met a friend in Dallas at the last place that I was working at, and, um, he kinda let me know that this company that he was super fond of was looking for somebody to fill this role as the Texas market manager for Westward Whiskey, and all he said was kinda, "I can just pass your resume along to the right folks, and we'll see what they think of you." I'm the only one in my company right now or in my role that doesn't come from a distributor background, so it's been a learning curve, but they were excited enough about my enthusiasm for the spirits and my background to really hit like the on-premise accounts, the restaurants and bars pretty hard that they gave me a shot, and the rest is history. We've been doing all right.
Hell yeah, yeah! And
Yeah.
we actually met at Lucky Liquor in Dallas, Texas. That's my spot. That's probably where I get like 80% or more of my bottles. You know, shout out to Scott. He's a cool guy. And
Yeah.
so I walked in, and every once in a while he'll do tastings or have tastings set up from whatever company may be in there. And I walked in, you were in there, and I was like, Westward Whiskey, never heard of it, but I love whiskey. Let's see what you got. So at the time, I don't know. I think you may have had 4 different bottles that you were taste
Yeah.
testing. So you had the 2 that I have right in front of me. So the one that I was just talking about, the Pinot Noir cask, and then I have the cash strength as well. Um, and then you had I can't remember the other 2, but I tried them and I was like, oh, they're not bad. But cash strength was like, that was my jam. And I was like, I want to get a bottle of that. So
Yeah.
yeah. And you sold me on it.
Yeah, no, I loved that. It was so good to meet you there. Like, I totally agree. Scott is good people, and it's nice to support the local independent liquor stores. So it's always a joy getting to meet people organically that way, people that are actually excited about the spirits. And we're definitely a weird category, American single malt whiskey. So not a lot of people are familiar with it, but we are. This is actually a really good time to have this conversation because we are currently in the 60-day comment period with the TTB to establish our designation as the third major whiskey category in the US. So after bourbon and rye, we are super hopeful that at the end of this 60-day comment period, we will be established as American single malt whiskey, the third category. So a lot of people aren't familiar with it. I love doing those store tastings and getting to talk to people like you and get you excited about it, whether it's something you thought you might have liked or not.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And I never heard of it. And it's one of those things where like, it's crazy how you can just like look at a brand and like initially be like, I've never had that, never seen that brand. I don't even want to try it. But that's one thing that I've learned. It's just because like you may not like the label. Not saying the label on here is amazing. I
Yeah.
love the label on here, but it's like just speaking generally. Like if you see a bottle of whiskey and you're like, that label sucks, whatever. Like you tend to not go to it, it's crazy how that works. But yeah, no, I've been branching off, trying as many different whiskeys as I can, and I've been on a rampage here lately, buying more bottles and more bottles. And Courtney, my fiance, I'm so sorry, but I have been blowing up our house with a lot of bottles. But
Hopefully, she'll still marry you whenever your wedding date is set.
she will. I'm pretty confident about that. So
Good. No, I'm totally kidding. Have you seen those memes though that blow up the husband for having too many bottles of bourbon or whiskey or whatever they got going on? I'm sure there's
uh I mean, I've seen video like people make videos about like, I got whiskey, I better come into the house very slowly and not let my
yeah,
significant other know. I'm like, I'm very open about that with her because I'm like, hey, I'm gonna whatever. I'm gonna go bourbon hunting today, so I'm most likely going to buy another bottle.
yeah.
But I do need to get better about not buying as much at once, specifically right now because we're trying to save for the wedding, and we want to be able to enjoy doing some things versus me just having a shit ton of whiskey at the house. So
Well, congrats on the impending wedding, though. It's very exciting.
yeah, I appreciate it, and congrats to you as well. I know you just had a child not a couple weeks
Yeah.
back, so it's awesome.
Thank you so much. He's my joy, my pride and joy, my first little baby boy. About 12 weeks now. He's here next to me.
What's what's
Sleeping
what's his name?
Maynard.
What up, homie?
What up, homie Maynard? He's a whiskey lover already.
Damn, that was quick.
I know.
Yeah, so speaking of whiskey, I just tried this and I think it's phenomenal. I think this I don't necessarily know exactly how many different whiskeys I've tried that are this is a finished or yeah, it's finished in Pinot Noir cask. So I haven't really tried too many different types of whiskeys that are finished in wine casks, if you will.
Mhm.
Um, but it's definitely growing on me, and I think I may have one other bottle that is finished in wine cask. I just got it the other day. Where is it? It's behind me somewhere. You're familiar with Penelope, correct?
Of course, yeah.
Okay, so yeah, Takaji cask finish. I've never even heard of it. I don't know if you can really
Nor
see
have
that.
I actually. Takashi.
So yeah, it makes me wonder. It's like, did Penelope just make that up, or is it really a thing? But I tried it and I was like, okay, yeah, that's good. So, and it's the same thing with this. It's like I dig that. So,
Yeah, good. Yeah, I there's a lot of port finishes. There's some cab finishes out there. I think this is the only one that I've had that's Pinot Noir cask finish, so it's interesting. And being that we are a whiskey made in Portland, Oregon, the idea is to stay as local to Oregon as possible and really celebrate the Pacific Northwest. So Willamette Valley, of course, makes some of the uh, best Pinot Noir out there, and so the distiller was really excited to just partner with some of his buddies, basically, because he used to manage a winery and work with lots of little local wineries and the casks that we source, and they're all really delicious and interesting. So, if you I know I didn't get you your samples in time, I'll kick myself in the butt for that forever, but if you compare it to the flagship whiskey, for example, it's just got, like, a lot more fruit on the nose, some interesting things going there on
uh,
there, I'd s
okay, I'm having a blonde moment. Okay, why can I not figure out what you mean by flagship?
The flagship is just the, straight American single malt whiskey that is basically the cask strength that you have, but, watered down a little bit. So it's our
Gotcha.
entry level 90 proof, flagship flagship bottle. So it's just the unfinished version, the mainstream product that Westward Whiskey puts out.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. You tried it that one day in the store, but it's been a while.
Yeah, yeah, it's been I don't even know how long it's been, maybe, like, 4 or 5 months or something? I'm not really too sure, but,
Yeah,
yeah, it's been a minute, and it's interesting 'cause every time I talk about whiskey, typically the conversation about, I didn't like it, but then I came back to it later and then I did like it comes up because everyone's palate's different and it's weird. That day that may have hindered my taste buds or whatever, and I'm like, this doesn't really taste that good. But then I come back to it later and I'm like, wow, this is actually pretty damn fire. I like
yeah.
that. But yeah, so now, I know that we were talking before we actually hopped on and started recording the episode, but you were saying that you went to like I can't remember exactly what it was called, but like a women in whiskeys event in January, right?
Yeah. Yeah, so out in San Antonio at La Cantera Resort, they host a monthly women in whiskey seminar with various brands, and they're really trying to celebrate women in the category, and which is pretty cool. And so I actually got to be like a key speaker, host a master class, which I don't think I'm necessarily qualified to host on the subject, but it was cool. We had a lot of really great engagement. And I'm excited to see people start to celebrate women in the category. To be
Yeah,
totally honest, it wasn't something that I even considered because for me, it's like I'm a woman. I like whiskey. What's it to you?
yeah,
But I understand that maybe women haven't been encouraged as much to drink whiskey or accepted as much, and it's exciting to see female distillers, females doing my role, in terms of going out there and selling the whiskey, and I get the compliment a lot, which I appreciate that. I'm really knowledgeable about the spirit, about the category, about the brand, and I guess it's refreshing for people because reps of all genders at some point in time are not as knowledgeable as they should be about what they're trying to sell. So uh sometimes it takes them aback that I'm a woman that knows what's up with whiskey, but
yeah.
other than that,
Well, I think it's cool, and so I mean, I don't know. This might just display my ignorance or whatever, but um, does it seem? I love the idea of having women in whiskey and why that's such a big thing. It's super cool.
yeah.
But does it seem sexist that we need to do that, or am I wrong?
Well, I you might get me talking here. So
Let's get it.
so personally, I guess what I was getting at in saying that to me, I'm just another person that likes whiskey, is I never really looked at it that way. I think there's this perception at times that women are an oppressed category, and I've never personally felt that way. I feel that I have all of the opportunities in the world, um, just like men do, as long as I go out and get it, you know?
Hell
Uh,
yeah.
and so I've never really felt that way. Now, in the sense of getting excited about it and, like, pumping other women up and, supporting them and, like, hoping that they will feel the same way, feel empowered to do whatever it is that they love. I'm all about it. I mean, and if I think we live in a society in which that's necessary sometimes because people feel unnecessarily hindered based on any number of factors. So, I'm definitely all about pumping up anybody that feels like they need a little extra nudge, a little extra support to just do what they love, you know?
Yeah.
So, I guess it can, I don't know. It doesn't, when I was approached to do this women in whiskey event back in January, I was like, what do I talk about? Because I don't really feel that it's that strange that I'm a woman in whiskey, but I get that it's something to celebrate. I think it's really cool. I know, I guess from time to time, I have gotten the like, "Are you sure you can handle that, little lady?" kinda thing,
Yeah.
but, it just doesn't bother me in the same way that it might bother some other folks. I just kind of brush it off and think it's silly and funny, and everybody's different and approaches the world in a different way, and, as long as you're not being outright rude or harmful to somebody, then I think that your view on the world is interesting and we should talk about it, you know? So,
Hell yeah.
hell yeah.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, I didn't know if that question made sense, but you answered that perfectly. So
Good. Yeah, I like the, "Isn't that a little much for you, little lady?" kind of folks, because I like talking back to them, showing them what's up.
yeah, because
Showing
it's
'em
kind
the new whiskey.
yeah, because I mean, okay, so when you typically think of whiskey, like generally, and I think I'm probably speaking more so about people that aren't necessarily like really into it, maybe not in the industry and stuff like that. It's like they initially think, oh, it's old men drinking this.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's true, and I mean, I do think that, like, there's a background of that being more the case, and maybe it wasn't always proper for women to drink full proof spirits in general, that's, like, a long time ago, though, in my opinion. I think we've progressed far from that point at, where we are now in society, so, but I think that, yeah, there's, like, brown spirits in general, women more often than not, I guess, probably stick to tequila and vodka because there's also this weird perception that it's better for you or has less calories or something like that too. So, to each his own, to each her own, I guess, but to each their own. But I think, all in all, I'm excited to introduce more women to whiskey that think that they're not going to like whiskey. So, like the one that you're drinking right now, I have all kinds of women that are like, "Well, no, I just drink wine." And I tell them, "Okay, let's try this Pinot Noir cask. I'm not going to be offended at all if you don't like it. At least you will have tried it. You might be surprised." And oftentimes, I have a lot of women that are like, "Still not for me, but I liked it way better than I thought I would," or that's actually pretty damn good or so it's all about taking the shot for me and opening people's eyes to something that they might love and at least they tried it if they don't.
all right, I'm gonna need you to sell my fiance on whiskey. Okay, so
What does she drink?
well, so she's more into wine. So Willamette Valley, like I was
Mhm,
saying when we first started, was like Left Coast wine is one of her favorite wines.
mhm.
It's a good daily drinker for her. The price point's amazing. It's like 25 bucks or something.
Yeah,
Um, and I mean, we'll buy a lot of those bottles from Lucky Liquor because I mean they have a really good. It's a really good price point.
yeah,
So, and I even found myself drinking it. And I'm like, wow, I actually like this, and I'm not a big wine drinker.
right.
So,
Yeah,
but yeah, Pinot Noir, or excuse me, uh, I think cabs are maybe more so. Wait, what is Left Coast? It's a
that's
Pinot Noir, right?
I don't know, that's a brand? Left Coast?
Yeah, that's the name of the brand. It's called Left
Okay.
Coast.
I'm not as familiar as I could or should be, to be honest, with wine. I mean, I know general facts about it, but as far as specific brands go, I couldn't really help you out with that.
It's all good.
Um,
But yeah,
but
your homework is to get my fiance to like whiskey.
yeah,
So,
okay. Well, I
court.
know you said you bought that bottle so she could try it, right?
Well, yeah. I just had popped it open. I'll have to get her to try it. But
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
because like I had misread your text whenever you had text me about like the bottle and stuff like
Yeah,
that, and then she was like, "No, well, if we're gonna get any bottle, then let's get the Pinot Noir." And I'm like, "I mean, are you gonna try some?"
yeah.
"Yeah." I think she said yes. I don't know. I don't know. You
In
can
your
tell
mind,
me you
yes.
could you could yeah, you can tell me your name and I'll forget 5 seconds later. I am
I'm
so
the
sorry.
same
So,
way. That is I've had to work on that hardcore, especially in this role, because a lot of it is connections and meeting people, and I am terrible because I'm the person that wants to walk up to you, introduce myself, but I've not listened to you when I shake your hand, so then I'm asking somebody who knows you and I what your name is, but I think I remembered your name the first time.
I
Getting
I don't
better.
I don't know.
I don't know, yeah.
If you didn't know my name, like, on the screen, this is edited because I'll have, like, a little, or Instagram tag set up
There you
at
go.
the below, but, like, if you didn't have my Instagram tag on here, it would just say S. So, if
Yeah,
you didn't know my name, you're
just
kinda
call me S.
SOL.
Yeah, well, or I could just call you S.
There you go.
And then you would think I was crazy, but it's fine.
Yeah, it's fine.
Are you gonna get into some cast strength now?
Yes,
That's what I'm
so
drinking.
okay, yeah, I'm gonna, put this one to the side for now. Cash
Glad
strength
you
is
like
more my jam, so,
yeah.
I have not drank too much of it, but there's a cask strength, ladies and gentlemen. Got a little nice purple label, but, yeah, it's, 125 proof, It is unfettered, whatever that means. Upstanding and uncut American single malt whiskey.
There you go.
Yeah, that's
What is-
interesting. I don't even know what unfettered means, but that's what it is, ladies and gentlemen.
Where do you even see that?
So on the label at the very
Oh,
bottom,
yeah. Okay, all right.
yeah, it says
Huh.
unfettered.
Huh. I'm gonna be totally honest. I hadn't even read the front of that yet. On the back, it has the tasting notes and everything. So
Oh,
that's
let's get into that.
well, to be totally honest, I mean, yeah, read it if you like, but I'm one of those people that likes to get people to try it first and, make their own judgments about what they're tasting before these are implanted into their mind. And then that's all they're going to read it if they buy the bottle anyway. But
That's true. Okay, so the only thing that I saw whenever I turned it around was graham cracker. I'm not gonna read anything else. So
okay.
I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna do like I mean, it's not really a blind tasting, but I'm gonna taste it, see what I can figure out. So
Okay.
here we go, ladies and gentlemen.
Cheers.
It's very spicy.
What do you mean by that?
Peppery, I guess.
Okay. I didn't know if you meant like hot on the palate or
No, I don't think it's super hot on the palate. I mean,
especially
that's
not for 125, right?
yeah. So for like 125 proof, that drink's very smooth, which
Yeah.
is super awesome. But I'd have to take another sip, but it tastes somewhat peppery, but it's not like super hot on the palate. Um, I don't know. Let me take another sip. I'm not sure.
Take your time.
Honey, maybe.
Yeah, I get honey on a lot of them, most of them, I think.
So I don't really know what else, and I'm getting anxious, so I'm gonna look at the back. Um,
Don't get anxious. For me, so tasting notes are so funny to me because I appreciate the guidance. I used to be a lot more into wine than I am now. I think it's simpler to find like tasting notes and aromas on wine than it is on a high proof spirit
mhm.
personally. So I've needed some guidance in finding them in the whiskeys, but so it's nice to read it and see and then you're like, "Oh, kind of yeah, maybe that is what I'm tasting." But yeah, I think you see a word there that resonates with what you were saying.
Yeah. So it says. So for everyone listening, it says. Well, 100% malted barley aged to perfection, toasted almond, graham cracker, which is the first word that I saw before we actually did this, and black pepper aromas,
Mhm.
sesame, which I can't say that I tasted that. Tobacco leaf, I'm not really too sure. Cocoa with a honey and deep fiery malt finish. So yes, honey.
Yeah.
I said spicy, so deep fiery malt finish. I guess that's what I was trying to say. Is the finish was pretty. It lingered. It was there quite a while. So yeah, all around, this is super good, and it really makes me want to try the single barrel because I can't find a bottle of it anywhere. 'Cause I know you did tell me that because I was texting you a couple weeks back about do you know where a single barrel's at? And you were like, yeah, I think there's a place up in Plano, and I'm like, I don't feel like driving that far
Did I
because I
tell
think
you about the twin on Fitzhugh though? They have the rye single barrel. The rye restaurant, not rye whiskey, but
yeah, yes, yeah, no, you'd mentioned that to me. I've yet to go, like I've been there, but I think I've been there twice, but then I think the first two times that I went there, I don't think we met, so I wasn't very aware of Westward whiskey.
mhm,
So I'm definitely have to go back over there and try it. But
yeah,
yeah, they have a good selection in there. They got some bottles that you're like, what is that? Like
yeah.
I've never seen that before.
Well, when your sample pack does arrive to you finally, there's a single barrel sample in there, so you'll at least get that, but
Oh, sweet. Okay,
yeah.
cool.
The single barrel program's pretty awesome. So they're basically, just taking so they're tasting barrels every day. There's, like, a panel of 5 folks at the distillery, and, there's no age statement on these bottles, I'm sure you noticed. They're not meant to be a specific age. The lead distiller is super adamant that he just wants them to have that kind of characteristic fruity note that you get, especially on the flagship whiskey, which you'll also get some samples of, but it's got, like, this tropical fruit banana note, and he says after about 6 or 7 years, you just totally start to lose that. So none of them are older than that, but they're basically pulled when they're ready. And because they're tasting the barrels so often, they come across these super strange barrels that don't necessarily fit into the typical blend, and those are the ones that they set aside for the single barrel. So I have ones that taste like cantaloupes, some that are really minty, some that do have really heavy, like, tobacco notes, so it's a pretty cool program, but
Okay.
excited to
So
get to try a few different ones.
so what do you tell people that are all about age and so let's say you're having a tasting, someone comes in and they're like, I'm looking for something 10 years or plus, whatever. So like what
Yeah.
would you tell someone like that?
Yeah, I mean, that happens a lot, and I think especially because it's a single malt, people start to equate it in their minds with Scotch, which is, um the distiller is super adamant that he's not trying to be Scotch. He loves Scotch, he loves Lagavulin, I think is one of his favorite ones, but he has a ton of respect for it, but what he's really trying to do American single malt whiskey in the States that celebrates American whiskey. And so with Scotch, of course, the climate there is much cooler. And then they're also using typically barrels that have already been used before. So they require plenty of time in the barrel to get any kind of color, flavor, depth. And in the States, that's just not the case. So not only do we have a climate that is a bit warmer and not so wet, but we're also using brand new American oak barrels, just like bourbon does. So it needs a lot less time in the barrel. So I talk about that. And then additionally, what I told you about like the flavor profile that he's really going for. So we're using the 100% malted barley, and then it's fermented with an ale yeast. It's the same yeast strain that Sierra Nevada uses to make their pale ale. And so that is what brings out like the fruity characteristics, the tropical fruit. There's like green apple and banana. And he is chasing this whiskey that has those fruity flavor profiles. And so he doesn't want to overage it and lose that and just sell you an oak bomb. So what I tell people is that it's very intentional because it is. And this is the whiskey he's trying to make. It's not because it needs more time in the barrel. We're not going to release a 14, 15-year-old whiskey because that's not what the distiller is chasing.
Okay. I like it.
I understand that some people think age is king in whiskey, and it is oftentimes with Scotch, but this is a different whiskey. It is sometimes with bourbon too, but we're in Texas, right? So Balcones, Garrison Brothers, those things do not need 5, 6, 7, 10 years in a barrel. They'd be black tar at that point, just based on the climate here. So, it's all about where the whiskey's made and what the distiller is trying to achieve, I
Yeah,
think.
yeah, for sure. And a lot of Texas whiskeys, like, I don't really know necessarily, but you were talking about balcones, and I think a lot of their whiskeys like age like 2 years, maybe.
Yep. Yeah.
So, and that's super super young, but
It's so hot here. It ages
yeah,
so fast.
yep,
Yeah. So I mean, I hope people continue to. I'm loving the whiskey revolution. Honestly, it's really cool to see people be open to new whiskeys, to new styles, to new mash bills, to new like finishing techniques. It's really cool to see people open up a little bit and try new things. And whiskey has been a particular thing or a couple of particular things for so long, but it's such a category with wide potential. So it's cool to that I tastings can be a pain in the ass sometimes, just getting them set up and uh, you know, at times maybe it's not as busy as you want it to be or whatever when people are coming by to the liquor store. But when I have those moments where I connect with one person that's like, no, I don't even want to try that. And I'm like, well, just you're not gonna offend me if you don't like it. Let's talk about it. And then they're like, well, that's really cool. It's just so gratifying to kind of open their eyes to something new. So
yeah. Because I mean, now anytime I've ever seen someone do like a tasting at a liquor store, which I see it often, because like I am always in one, pri- primarily on the weekends, and um, I've seen, I don't know, maybe 4 at Lucky Liquor. I just so happened to walk in, they had some, and then, whenever I went to Specs, typically I go to the one kinda close to North Park here in Dallas, Texas. They'll have a lot of, vendors in there kinda giving out some samples and stuff like that, and it's funny to see people's interactions whenever they're kinda walking past. They're like, "No, don't talk to me, please
Yeah.
leave me alone," and
Yeah.
it's just like, I mean, they're just doing their job, but I mean,
Yeah,
why not have a sample? It's,
yeah,
what's it gonna hurt? I mean, they're not unless they're like, I mean, their job is to sell the brand. So, like,
yeah.
yes, they are going to try to sell you some of
Of
that.
course.
So,
Well, and it's fine. I definitely respect people, but it is funny with the tastings that my favorite excuse is, "Well, I'm driving," and I'm like, "So you can't have a quarter ounce of whiskey?" Thank you for being responsible. I'm not shaming you for that, but come on now. But it's kinda goofy. It's, you know, most of my counterparts doing this are on the West Coast, many of them 4 of them in California, and I know it's a different world out there, and I've had a couple of them visit here in Texas, and they're always kind of, flabbergasted by how nice people are for the most part, and that's true, and it's really nice to be able to go into a liquor store or a bar and, just kinda, like, cold call people on the brand, and they don't totally shut you down like they might in LA, I guess, is what I hear. But at the same time, I still think it's so funny when in the liquor stores, people will walk by and you'll say like, "Hey, how you doing?" And they don't even have the courtesy to be like, "Fine, how are you?" You know? And I know, I get it. You're being pestered by somebody to try to make a sale, but it's it's a funny little role we're in, that's for sure.
yeah, well, and I can only speak from, like, my only my experiences, but, like, I love talking to people. I wouldn't have this podcast if I didn't,
Right.
but, um, it's weird though, because like, I can be socially awkward sometimes,
Oh,
and, there's been time, and I'm sure people that are listening to this have done this before. If you haven't, you're lying, and we
yeah.
all know you are. So, I'll use, like like a grocery store, for example, and so I'm not originally from Dallas. I'm originally New Orleans, but I grew up in Cleveland, Tennessee, and,
Cleveland, Tennessee.
Cleveland, Tennessee. It's Southeast Tennessee, and it's kinda close to Chattanooga, which is
Okay,
right on
yeah,
the border of Georgia. So, um, there are times I'm like, we'll use Walmart, for example. I hate Walmart. It's
me
like,
too.
if you ever seen people of Walmart.com, then you know what I'm talking about. So, um,
That's what I need to look that up.
people of Walmart.com, ladies and gentlemen,
Oh, yeah.
if you're bored and you have nothing else to do, check it out. Um, but
Sounds
so I would walk into the store. If I see someone, I would like get like some weird, like anxious energy, and then like I'd like intentionally go like another way to not talk to them. I'm like, it's weird. And if you've never done that, ladies and gentlemen, then I guess I'm just crazy and I'm the only one. But
No,
I get
I think like you said, they're just a liar if they've never done that.
exactly.
Did I know that you were from New Orleans originally? I saw your Vieux Carré sign in the background. I don't
Uh,
think we had talked about that before though.
no, no, I can't say that we have, but yeah. So I originally am from New Orleans. I was born
Okay.
there, lived there in 2005, and
Did you
Hurricane Katrina happened, and I got dislocated to Tennessee.
Okay. So well, you know the area. I grew up in Mandeville,
Okay.
and so I went to school in Metairie, and same thing, so we got
No shit. What school?
Christ Episcopal.
I grew up in Metairie.
You did?
Yes.
Nice.
That
So, yeah, we were commuting across the Causeway Bridge every day, but, we got, relocated as well. We moved to San Antonio after Katrina in
no sh
2005.
no
Yeah,
shit.
yeah,
What?
I didn't think we had talked about that. Yeah,
This
um,
is so random.
yeah. So, yeah, oh, sorry. Christ Episcopal was my elementary school. My goodness, cast strength is strong. I went to St. Martin's Episcopal in
Okay.
Denver. I don't know if you're familiar with it,
I
but, um,
vaguely can.
yeah.
I feel like it sounds familiar, but I'm not sure.
Private schools, they were small. I was fortunate enough to get I went to Montessori school when I was really young, and then I was really fortunate to get, scholarships to go to private school out there. Because, as you probably recall, the public school system in Louisiana is not the best, so
No, it definitely is not. But
No. Yeah, well,
yeah,
but
let's see. So, my brother went to EJ. You know where EJ's at? East Jefferson High School.
Oh, the name rings a bell.
Okay.
If you're asking where it's at, I am still to this day the worst human with directions. So
Well, I'm kind of the same way. My brother's a little bit better with it than I am because like he just turned 40 and
okay.
his sense of direction in New Orleans is way better than mine because he was I'm 31. He's a lot. Let's see, what is that 9? Yeah, 9 years.
Mhm.
So he grew up in his teenage years there, so like he knows places, blah blah blah, whatever. And like we went back, a couple months, about a year ago or so, and we're driving around. He's like, "Hey, let's go this way. Let's go that way." And I'm like, "Wait, are you sure it wasn't over here?" He's like, "No, you're stupid, man. It's this way." And I'm like, "Okay." So, but no, I miss the city, but I'm also very glad that I did not grow up there because I feel like I'd be a very different person.
Yeah, I was on the North Shore, so I was far enough away to not grow up in the city. Um, I I was there from age I wasn't born there, but I was there from age 2 to 16, or actually Katrina hit, like, the day after my 16th birthday. But I will always be grateful for growing up in the vicinity of New Orleans because I just can't imagine not experiencing that food and that culture and those people, and, um but my parents lost the only home they'll ever own, to Katrina, so I can't imagine now wanting to put down roots there and stay forever. I'll visit a million times. I can't wait to go back again. It's a beautiful city, and it's definitely transformed like crazy since the hurricane.
Oh
But,
yeah,
um but it's
yeah.
cool. I mean, that's kinda what I like about it. If America is a melting pot, that is certainly, like, the example of it, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And happy belated birthday, by the way,
Hmm,
because
thank you.
Katrina, the anniversary of Hurricane Katrina was actually this past Monday. That was
Yep.
it was been 17 years, which
How
is
crazy is that?
yeah, it's crazy. And
Yeah, I know.
so I was this past Sunday, so last Sunday, I was sitting in bed. You know, me and my fiance are kind of winding down, and I'm kind of going through the TV, and I pull up HBO, and the first thing that pops up is this documentary called Katrina Babies, and I'm like, wait, what? And then like, so the art, the way the art was set up, I saw a picture or a still frame of a child that was actually in one of the original documentaries that was made by Spike Lee called When the Levees Broke.
Uh-huh.
Or I think it's When the Levees Break or When the Levees Broke. I can't remember the
Sounds like
actual.
a Led Zeppelin song.
So, but so super good documentary. It's fucking depressing, but
Oh, yeah.
it's very good to I thought it was amazing. And so I saw a still frame of a child that was in the original documentary, and I'm like, "Oh shit, this is a Hurricane Katrina documentary." And I realized I was like, "Oh shit, tomorrow's the anniversary."
Yeah.
It just kind of slipped my mind, and I'm like, "I can't believe that slipped my mind," because like New Orleans is such a has such a big place in my heart. I literally have a tattoo on my chest of a collage of New Orleans.
Oh, cool.
So, because it's I put it over my heart because
Yeah.
I mean, I grew up there. At, until I die, my roots are there. Like,
Yeah,
that's where I grew up. So,
same. I'll always call it home no matter how far away I am from it. My
yeah,
very first tattoo was a little fleur de lis, so I feel
yeah.
you.
But yeah, so I was watching the documentary, and the guy that directed it was actually, I think. So I'm 31. I think he's like maybe a little bit younger than I am, or a little bit older. And I'm like, no shit, man. So like the whole point of the documentary was talking about the trauma that the children went through. It's like, I never really even thought, even I didn't actually stay there. So my family and I were fortunate enough to be able to leave. We had the means of transportation to get out of the town, and I didn't really think anything of it because like, it was one of those things where like, people in New Orleans weather the storm. That's just how they
Yeah,
are. They're not going to leave. And but my family and I from time to time would evacuate, and it was kind of like a thing that we did every hurricane season
yeah,
if we felt the need to do so. And I just thought, okay, we're gonna leave and we'll be back. Never went back.
yeah.
And I
Nope.
was like, holy crap. And it was that was on there on the documentary were children that were actually in the city kind of talking about anyone ever talked to you about what we're talking about right now about you smell because there were dead bodies
Yeah,
everywhere
yeah,
and it was insane. But
yeah. That's my yeah. So my grandma, she was from Czechoslovakia and tough old bitch. She did not. So I get like my favorite story about her. She would not drive in the States because she said American drivers were crazy. So she rode her bike everywhere. She lived in New Orleans. She got hit by an 18-wheeler twice on her bike and, like, had pins in her shoulders and her hips, keeping things together, but she also just loved that city so much that when the hurricane hit, we could not get her to leave, and she stayed in her apartment there, and, she weathered the storm, she was fine, she's gone now, but, I have so much respect for that in so many ways, but my family also, evacuated even though we actually lost our house even though we were on the North Shore, so, it was a lot, and I went back, so same as you, I guess, we actually evacuated to Dallas, which before I moved there a year and a half ago or whatever, that was the only other time I had been to Dallas, but it was the closest hotel room we could find at the time because the evacuations were so crazy, and, um, we, my mom, my sister, and I never looked back in terms of going back to the house. My dad went back to try to collect what he could from what was there, and I remember him telling me about, like, folks sitting on their porches with their shotguns trying to protect their homes because there was all the looting and stuff going on, and, crazy, crazy times, and then I went back the Thanksgiving after the hurricane hit, and I have all these crazy pictures of, like, cars that had been picked up by the water and were set back down on top of fences and stuff like that, and, I'll have to send you a photo at some point because I have one where there's, like, this ray of sunshine, sun flare kind of, like, hopeful situation going on in the photo, but, it was crazy to see the wreckage, and like you said, with the dead bodies and the spray paint on the homes that said that we're basically clearing the homes, like, no bodies here or however many there were. And, I my husband and I so my husband had not been to New Orleans until very recently. Last time we were there was, March of 2020. So we were there right before the world kinda ended, and, we still were seeing those little, uh tags on homes with the body count and stuff, which was pretty crazy to me. And I I remember being there with him too, and he loved the city. It was really cool to take him and kinda show it to him for the first time, but I remember being there and hearing that South by Southwest in Austin was canceled because of COVID, and I was like, "Bullshit. What the heck is this? What's going on?" Um, but, little did we know everything was gonna shut down for a couple years, so
yeah.
it was pretty crazy. We were there the week, after Mardi Gras too that year, so I don't know if we might have had early COVID or whatever at that time too, but, crazy world.
Yeah. Yeah, I was just saying I miss the city for sure. It's just the culture, the food. I still keep in touch with like two of my buddies that I grew up with. And oddly enough, one of my best friends is literally working at the same company that I work at, and I've known him since kindergarten. And it's like
Yeah,
kind of weird how life works, but
it
um
is.
yeah. So I don't know if you know this or not, but so I work at UPS,
Yeah,
and one of my coworkers is a Navy veteran, and couple months back, I don't know how this came up in conversation, but he was in the Navy for I don't know 20 whatever years, and then I think he actually did some tours in Afghanistan. So he's seen, according to him, he's seen some shit.
I'm
Because
sure.
because some of the stuff he tells me, I'm like, oh my god. But then, like when you're talking to him, you're like, you don't see any trauma or anything like that. At least, I mean, people can hide stuff very well.
Of
Like you,
course.
like he's not outwardly expressing, you know, I, he needs to talk to somebody or whatever. But it's like according to him, he was one of the him and his platoon were the first, as he puts it, boots on the ground. Um, in New Orleans when Katrina happened to go save people. So like he was that guy in boats, in helicopters, whatever, coming in like picking people off their roof. And I'm like, no shit, man. Like
Yeah.
it blew my mind. I was like, wow.
I had a my best friend stayed behind, and, he actually lived in the Ninth Ward, and so he was telling me, I mean, as you know, like, we couldn't talk to folks for weeks because the telephone lines were down, and, um, he had several young siblings and his mom, and, that was actually where I ended up going back to take a bunch of photos with him, but, they got out okay because he climbed up into the attic and busted his roof out with a pipe so that they could get onto the roof and be rescued, but, yeah, he was up there for a few days, and maybe your buddy rescued him. I don't know.
Whew.
But
Yeah, yeah, that's intense. I know one person that had to do that. So my brother is my half brother, and we have different dads.
Mhm.
And his this is super. This is the world is so weird. So
So weird.
he has a he had well at now he had the lady has since passed, but it wasn't because of Katrina. But he had a cousin that we actually met at at a random restaurant where we lived in Tennessee. It was his cut, and because somehow heard like they have a very interesting last name. Their last name is Pressenbach,
Okay.
and I don't necessarily remember exactly how we found out what their last name was. I don't know if like we heard someone yell out their name or something. But my mom was the one that had realized like, "Hey, your last name's Pressenbach?" And like, "Oh, do you know so and so? Do you know?" No shit. And then we found out that they were related to my brother, and I'm like, "Wow." And so she was my mom by marriage was related to them at one point, and I was like,
Mhm.
"This is fucking crazy." So,
It
but yeah,
is.
but anyways, his cousin had to do the same thing, go in the attic and bust through the roof, and I'm like, "Man, that had to be so terrible."
So crazy, and there was a big part of me, in my rebellious teen years or whatever was going on, I was mad that we left because, like you said, I mean, it's just I didn't even live in New Orleans, but that culture is, like, very pervasive. I wanted to stay and be there with my town and, like, go through it together, but of course, we made the smart decision and left, but at the same time, as you said, I mean, there are just so many people that couldn't even if they wanted to, so, you know,
Yep,
it's, really crazy,
yep,
but it's made me who I am, or it's at least part of it, right?
that's right.
Yeah.
So, but, all right, so for everyone watching and listening, if they wanted to buy Westward Whiskey, how would they go about doing that if they cannot find it in their local liquor store?
Yeah. So, you can in most states, I think it's like 33 different states at this point, you can actually buy it online. So at westwardwhiskey.com, we do ship usually they're a third party to most states. So you can do that. And then if you I don't know, Sean, if you can link to my email, or I guess you'll be linking to my Instagram, but I'm happy to have people message me on Instagram if they're looking for the whiskey because um, it's super delicious. I would love to get it into your hands. It's unlike most other things. If you're a Scotch drinker or a bourbon drinker, you're probably going to find something you love because it is the single malt profile, but also aged in new American oak, and it's 100% American whiskey. I think that's the coolest thing about what we do is that we're trying to be American whiskey, and we are American whiskey, and we do everything here in the States, and we're creating American jobs and hand labeling our bottles and doing everything kind of from scratch, from the ground up at the distillery. So I would love to find as many people as possible that want to try and want to support it. So don't hesitate to message me. That's probably the best way to go.
Ladies and gentlemen, y'all heard it here. Until next time, everybody, y'all have a good one. Peace.